Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be going through all 49 brawlers inside of a game and giving you guys my thoughts in terms of balance trades of what I think, what brawlers I think need to get buffed, what brawlers I think need to get nerfed. So going to be going through every single one about 15 seconds. I haven't got any gameplay for this video because it's going to take a long time to get gameplay for all 49 brawlers in the game, but I am going to be uploading tier lists in a few days time. Don't worry, guys, just need to put some time aside to get that done. So before we get into today's video, make sure you're using the credit code in the shop. Mine will be greatly appreciated, and without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Alright, guys, so we're going to be going through these balance changes from rarity, through all the rarities. So we're going to be starting off with the starter brawler and the trophy road brawler. So starting off with Shelly. I feel like Shelly is the worst brawler in the game by far right now, just not good in the meta whatsoever. So the best way to make a brawler meta, not really the way I really want it to, but giving Shelly a really good second gadget, maybe just completely removing clay pigeons because it's not useful at all. Maybe just making a really OP second gadget. I'm not too sure. Other than that, I don't think it's worth actually upgrading Shelly in base stats, because for starter players, Shelly's going to be really OP. So definitely need to go through the route of the star powers or the gadgets to make Shelly meta again. Going on to Nita, I think Nita's one of the most balanced brawlers in the game right now. Don't think I'll change too much. If anything, I would probably nerf the shield a tiny bit. It's kind of frustrating having to waste so much ammo on the shield. Probably just make it like 30% or something. Don't think too much needs to be changed about Nita. Going into Colt now. Colt is in a really good spot as well. He works really well with those long range brawlers and has his few niches in the meta. I think he's a little bit on the weaker side, so if I was looking to improve Colt in the meta, probably would only buff him a little bit, maybe like increases decrease his reload speed a little bit, or add a tiny bit of damage. Other than that, I think is in a pretty healthy spot in the meta. So moving on to Bull now. Bull also in a good spot in the meta, if anything. Now at the start of the balance changes, when the change to his trait got introduced, I thought Bull was really strong. He's slowly working himself down in the meta. I don't think he's that strong at all. If anything, I'll probably buff his health like 200 HP or something like that. Might increase his viability a little bit. Just tanks are just really hard to do well in the meta, except for El Primo, obviously. Moving on to Jesse. Jesse not really used too much in the meta as well. If I was Supercell, I would probably revert the turret change. For some reason, they decreased the HP on the Jesse turret. Probably would revert that, get it back up to 14. I think it was 4,480. I think, and the HP on Jesse as well, which is not really used at all in this meta. So going on to Brock now. Brock in a decent place as well. He's slowly becoming a lot more meta in games like Bounty and Heist. But again, I really don't like this gadget being meta. So if I was Supercell, I'd be nerfing the rocket fuel gadget. Just really don't like it. Rocket laces is one of the most fun gadgets in the game, in my opinion, and it's just not meta. So I think we need a big nerf to rocket fuel, and we can't really buff rocket laces, unfortunately. Probably buff Brock's base stats, give him a bit more HP because he's always struggled in that department, and then hopefully we'll get a healthy Brock meta. Moving on to Dynamite. So Dynamite, I think, again, is in a really decent spot in the meta. He's on the weaker side. It's kind of hard to make Dynamite meta. There's not really a lot of changes I really recommend. Maybe make his gadget a little bit stronger. I don't really know what you change about Dynamite, because he's actually good in niche markets as well in Power League. For example, like when an enemy goes like Barley, you can easily go Dynamite as a last pick. He's honestly okay in this meta. So going on to Bo now. Bo absolutely trash in this meta. To be fair, I don't know how you could really make him meta. Again, if I was Supercell, I'll probably be looking just to upgrade his base stats, maybe give him a little bit more HP, maybe give him a bit more damage, but everything else, his gadgets are a bit lackluster. His star powers, you can only really use this snare at bare star power, so yeah, probably give him a bit more damage along the lines of that. Going on to Tick now. So Tick is in a good spot as well, if anything a little bit on the strong side, and can be a little bit annoying. So if we're looking at Tick and probably nerfing him again, probably would look at nerfing his last hurrah gadgets. Already been nerfed a lot, but I just feel like it's still by far the strongest gadget. So making the gadgets balanced, that's what I kind of would like in the balance changes, for like both gadgets and star powers to be similar. I think his base stats are pretty much fine. His damage is fine. His reload speed is fine. So I feel like a gadget change would be really nice and welcomed. So now moving on to 8-Bit. 8-Bit, he's not really in the best spot in the meta. Slowly worked his way down. The only game mode he's really viable on right now in competitive is gem grabs. So if I was Supercell, I'd probably It's quite a hard one. I would probably revert the damage booster change. I don't really, or just add like 5% or something like that, because people still aren't going to be using the boosted booster star power. It's just not that great. You just need the extra speed with 8-bit. It's just so hard to do anything with a slow 8-bit. One of the worst brawlers in the game when he hasn't got that speed. So yeah, I'll be looking just to probably increase his normal damage boost by like 5%. Then we might see him in the meta a little bit more. So going on to Ems now. So Ems, I thought was one of the best brawlers inside of the game. When the balance changes hit, she's just completely dropped off the meta. I'll probably put her somewhere in the middle in terms of viability. Never see her in competitive whatsoever anymore unless there's like Primo in play, and most time he is banned out. So Ems, I would probably, I don't know, we haven't got a second gadget for Ems for a while, right? She's always had this gadget. Maybe a good second gadget will make her somewhat viable. This one's a really strong one though, because obviously you're going to get countered when brawlers are close to you, but I feel like she needs a second gadget. Might give her a little bit of love, but overall I think she's fairly balanced. She's really strong, especially at the lower end of trophies as well. So moving on to Stu now. So Stu is by far the best brawler in the game, right? We can balance him in multiple ways. So the first one I did recommend beforehand, you just got to nerf his gadget to the ground. It's way too strong. You get a free super, you wall break. So for me, I would obviously remove the free super part, make it so you can only use it when you automatically get super, but because you already get a super easily with Stu, right? It takes one shot to literally get super, so it shouldn't really be an issue. And also just dealing damage with this gadget doesn't make any sense. Probably just remove that fact or just make it really low. Gas the heal is just way too strong as well. This is used all the time over the zero drag star power. Everyone uses the gas the heal, so probably nerf gas the heal to like 300 or 250 or something like that. Honestly, it's just way too strong. And then maybe even nerf something else. Honestly, like multiples nerfs are needed to Stu. He's been at the top of the meta for such a long time. So that's going to be the starter brawlers right there. Let's move into the next rarity. Alright guys, so now moving on to the rare brawlers, starting off with one of the best brawlers inside of the game. It is El Primo. So obviously I don't want to nerf Primo into the ground because it's only just became somewhat viable inside of the game, so don't obviously want to kill Primo off. But I think the main thing about him, and what I've said for a very long time now, is that he just recycles his super way too quickly. Like as soon as you get that first super, you're going to be able to chain so easily, especially when you're taking damage as well as dealing damage to the enemy. It's just such a toxic trait. He's got one of the best supers inside of the game and just really hard to counter. So yeah, I definitely recommend him taking more punches just in general to get his super. I think it takes around 8 hits to get his super, 9 hits, I'm not entirely sure, something like that, to just get a free super. So definitely increase that, and that might stop recycling of the supers, and maybe just nerf his HP just a little bit, like 200 HP, and see what that does with El Primo. So moving on to Barley now. Barley is in a really solid spot. I honestly probably won't change anything about Barley. I think he's in a really good spot. He's really strong on certain maps, and then other maps obviously he's not the best on. Maybe nerf him a little bit, because when he's good on like Siege, for example, it can be really hard to counteract. And maybe the extra nauseous star power is probably a bit too strong. I see probably like 90% of pros use the extra nauseous star power, so probably nerf it a little bit just so it gives some love to medical use. Or if you don't want to nerf it, just buff medical use. That's probably like the only change I would give to Barley. Fairly balanced brawler. Poco, I feel like, is again a pretty balanced brawler right now. I didn't like the change when they made it to 4 hits to get a super, so I don't want to do anything like that again. That was absolutely toxic. I think the only change I'd really recommend is just giving some balance to the gadgets and star powers, right? Because everyone uses Tuna Fork, everyone uses Sticapo, so give some love to the other gadgets. And I don't think nothing really needs to change with his base stats. If anything, probably even nerf his gadget, because it just gets used too much, and this one just has no viability. I feel like they just need to completely rework this gadget. I don't feel like it's going to work ever in this type of game. It's just too scenario based, right? It's just much safer going for the other one. And then the last rare brawler, Rosa. Rosa, fairly balanced brawler right now. I always think she has her little niche in certain compositions. If anything, she's on the weaker side, so I don't really know what I'd actually change about her without her being toxic, because she can work really strong. For example, if you have like a Sandy super, or if you combine with a Poco, or you combine with like a max speed and then you slow brawlers down, like Rosa can be unstoppable. So I probably won't change anything about Rosa. One of the only brawlers I won't really change, because she's quite balanced. So that's going to be the rare one. So let's hop into the next rarity. Alright guys, so now moving into super rare, starting off with Rico. So Rico only has became meta. It's been a very long time since Rico's been one of the best brawlers inside of a game. It goes back all the way until beta. Beta, Rico used to be an absolute monster. but it's only just became meta. So it's unfortunate that the only reason why he's meta is because of his gadget. That's not really healthy, right? So definitely in need of a nerf. This gadget is just way too strong. It's just so easy to win lane, especially against your hard counters as well. You know, brawlers like Sprout, for example, that used to free shot you. You can literally just pop your gadget, and sometimes it will take like 7 shots, 8 shots, probably even more for a Sprout to kill you. And eventually you're going to get into the Sprout's face and just kill you. So yeah, this gadget just heals too much. Probably would nerf it to around like 200 health per projectile, something like that. And then he might be balanced. So yeah, that's the balance change for Rico. Daryl has been one of the worst brawlers inside of a game for a very long time now. No one really used him in competitive whatsoever. I felt like his niche was heist, and he's just never used it in heist. So if I was Supercell, probably look at buffing his HP, buffing one of his star powers, and his gadgets are just really bad as well. Both gadgets are really bad. If you think about Daryl, he's an assassin type brawler, especially with his role, and brawlers like Buzz get a free super, and you can just super onto an enemy from across the map. Daryl, it takes a while for us to get him super. This gadget only gives you like 25% of your super. It's just not that great. So I'll probably even change his gadget so you get like 75% of your super free. I don't really know. Something like an Edgar gadget change would be really nice for Daryl. Both gadgets really bad. Both star powers not really the best either. It definitely is in need of some big love, because all of the tanks have become somewhat okay in the meta. Daryl just fallen off completely. So give him some HP, give him some damage, give him just anything, and he just needs some love in every department. So now moving on to Penny. Penny had a small like chance in the meta. Basically, there was like a secret mechanic change where her turret just was able to scout so many different places. That got changed quite quickly, and we just fast saw Penny just be removed out of the meta again. So Penny definitely in need of love in some form of way. Don't really want to buff her super, because that turret can just be really toxic. It's basically like a 4th player on your team. So probably just buffing her base stats, like her HP, her damage, something simple like that might make her a little bit more meta, or maybe a faster projectile speed, because I feel like it's just too slow on Penny. Really easy to dodge. So next one is Cole. Cole's slowly gone out of the meta as well. He was in a fairly balanced place come the balance changes, but he's just slowly just dropped completely out of the meta, really. Even in game modes like Siege, where he used to thrive with that gadget, he's just completely dropped out of it. So probably I would look at reverting some of the past changes that they made. I think they made his pickaxe a little bit slower. Maybe revert that change and he might become meta. The thing about Carl is that he's either at the bottom of the meta or either at the top of the meta. So you don't want to over buff him too much. Maybe just keep slightly buffing him until he becomes somewhat viable in a lot of different places. Yeah, just not really used at all. And Jackie, one of the best brawlers in the game as well. So as always, I think everyone has the same frustration with Jackie, is her super. Her super definitely in need of a change. Probably the worst super inside of a game. So for her to be viable in the future, I think she needs a good super. So a complete rework with her super. Give her some more HP. Revert the change on the Hardy Hard Hat. If anything, give it an extra 10% to hopefully give her some love. And she might get some usage inside of meta. So that's going to be the super rare brawlers right there. Let's move into the next rarity. Alright guys, so now moving on to the epic brawlers. Starting off with Piper. I think Piper is basically super balanced inside of the meta right now. If anything, I would look at nerfing the homemade recipe gadget. I just think it's a super cheesy gadget, too easy to get a kill with. I don't know how you'd really nerf this one, but I said probably the only thing I can think about Piper which I don't really like. Everything includes base stats, her star powers, both are viable, but the gadget's a bit of a disbalance. This gadget's by far the better one, so look at some way of balancing those gadgets, and then Piper can be a really solid brawler overall. So Pam is secretly a really underrated brawler. We've seen a lot of Pam in the monthly finals. I've seen last week and then this weekend as well. We've seen a lot of different regions just love Pam, especially with that new gadget. So Pam, I feel like we should nerf that gadget just a little bit. Obviously she's only just becoming a little bit meta. Just nerf it a tiny bit. I don't know, like removes like 20% of opposing brawlers. I don't know how you would actually change this to nerf it a little bit, but I think that mechanic is just super strong, and people are finally learning how to use it, especially against those long range brawlers. It just destroys them, and Pam slowly returning to meta. I don't know, probably just leave Pam, to be honest, and just see how she is in the long run. So now moving on to Frank. Frank is okay in this meta. Tanks still probably struggle a little bit too much. But Frank just keeps getting HP buffs with every single balance change. Maybe just give him a slight HP buff or something like that. That's kind of the way Supercell just do it with Frank. They just keep adding HP until he's eventually going to become like a 20k HP brawler. But yeah, I think just a slight HP buff should be sufficient for him. BB's in an okay place right now. I feel like they should maybe change the batting stance to like 30% again, or just add a little bit. I'll probably just remove a little bit of HP and increase the batting stance star power resistance. I don't really know with BB. Maybe a second gadget as well will make her okay, but I feel like she's in a decent spot in the meta. I kind of don't want to touch her too much because I don't want to make her really OP. Sometimes when the batting stance star power gets buffed too much, she's just way too strong on the lane and really hard to kill paired with that gadget. So next up is B. Really solid spot as well. Don't think much has to change about her. If anything, we need a buff on that honeycomb. I think I did mention in one of the videos previously that his star power just never gets used. So when there's a clear disbalance with star powers in terms of what pro players pick, I think the other one definitely needs some love. So honeycomb, probably like a 30% shield or just a different mechanic change. I just don't feel like it's that useful because most of the time you're not going to be holding on to that 3k shot. You want to just try and release it and deal as much damage as possible to the enemies. And again, don't really like the Rattle Hive gadget. Like, I've got flashbacks from when it used to be the best gadget in the game, so broken. But it does need a little bit of love at the minute. It's too trash, so maybe buff that a little bit. Other than that, B is a really solid balanced brawler. Next up is Nani. So Nani is a pretty interesting one, right? Really high skill cap. In Shooting Star, this Return to Sender gadget is way too broken, so there needs to be some mechanic change with Return to Sender. I just think it offers too much value. I remember Bobby, I think, saying on Twitter some time ago that a good mechanic change would be for it to be like a time limit on Return to Sender. That could be a good idea. Other than that, not really too sure because the Warp Blast is going to be better in most game modes. It's just that one map, Shooting Star, where that gadget is just too strong on. But Nani got like some really nice balance changes last time out. I really like the change where it took less hits to get the Nani head, but then it does less damage. It just feels really healthy right now. So other than that, nothing needs to change with Nani. So next up we have Edgar. So Edgar, one of the worst brawlers in the game right now. But you got to be super careful with how you treat Edgar because everyone loves Edgar low down. But also just when Edgar was meta in the 3v3 meta, it was just so toxic. Like literally Edgar just deleted you straight away. The time to kill on Edgar is just too fast. So you got to be careful with this brawler. I think only a slight buff to something like one of the star powers. Definitely like this gadget probably needs a little bit more love because it just is just completely trash in comparison to the other one really. And yeah, I don't really know what else you can change with Edgar. I'm just scared to even touch any of them. I think I'll just increase like maybe the supercharge rate just a little bit or something like that. Again, I don't want it to go too out of hand because this brawler can easily be like one of the best in the game with a few small changes. So next up we have Griff. So Griff, I feel like again is secretly really strong. People are just starting to realize how strong he is. So for me, I would definitely look at nerfing the gadget just a little bit. I feel like it destroys too much area in the long run. I'm playing a lot of Griff on certain maps and I can open up the map so easily with his gadget. So yeah, nerf the gadget just a little bit and then I think Griff is in a perfect spot. And also his supercharge rate, actually supercharge rate is super toxic. You can just you can keep cycling those cards so easily. I think it's a really underrated mechanic. So that's going to be the epic brawlers. Let's jump into the next rarity. Okay guys, so next up we have mythic brawlers, starting off with Mortis. And Mortis has slowly gone out of the meta, unfortunately. I think with the ammo change, it's just really hurting because of Cord Snake. It just takes too long to actually get it. And also there's just always been a clear disparity between the two star powers. Cord Snake's always been one of the best star powers and Creepy Harvest always been one of the worst. So I don't know how they're going to change this, but again, it's always a thing that I say about Mortis. Those star powers definitely need to be balanced. Gadgets, I think both are just personal preference, and not really much has to change about it. But yeah, he's had a really bad time with that ammo change, so something needs to change with him. Maybe give him a little bit more HP. You got to be kind of careful Mortis because he's a really high picked brawler, so you don't want him to be too toxic. But for sure, there's something that needs to change about him because of how bad he's been affected by that ammo change. So next up we have Tara. So Tara, I would probably look at nerfing this gadget. This gadget is just a little bit too strong down the lane at certain points. It's only strong against the single hit brawlers, but still just offers a bit too much pressure. So maybe they disappear after like 5 seconds. That might be a nice change there, and then we might see both gadgets being used. Both star powers are amazing with Tara, so nothing really needs to change about that. I think the gadget change is the only one we need with her, and then she'll be fairly balanced. So next up we have Jean. So Jean is just far too strong in this meta, right? It's not because he's like a brawler like Stu that can just win every single 1v1 interaction. I just think he's too strong with other brawlers next to him with that magic puff star power, and we never see any love on Spirit Slaps. So unfortunately for me, I would nerf magic puffs a little bit. It's not been touched at all. It's really surprising to see that it's not been nerfed, even though it's clearly the better star power and it has been for some time. So maybe just a small HP per second nerf, like 350 HP or something like that, and then I don't really know. We need obviously some love with Vengeful Spirits, because that is the worst gadget inside of a game. Definitely need a mechanic change, or I don't even know. It's just such a bad gadget that needs to be changed for sure. But yeah, I don't want to kill Gene too much, obviously, because I love him. A little bit biased there. So next up is Max. Max is kind of balanced on the weaker side of the meta. I feel like she doesn't get a super fast enough now. So you don't really see her too much. Maybe I would just increase her damage back to what it was, and then leave the supers, because we don't want her getting too many supers, right? It's a little bit too strong. So probably just buff her damage back to what it was, and we might finally start seeing her a little bit more. So next up, we have Mr. P. So Mr. P, for some reason, is getting used a lot in certain regions, like Latam, for example, is seen a lot in the monthly finals. So maybe Mr. P doesn't actually need to be buffed, even though in EU, it's just never used. Maybe people are underrating him a little bit, but Mr. P, if anything, like I said, probably does need a buff. Don't want to buff him too much, because when he is strong, everyone knows he's probably the most annoying brawler inside of a game with those penguins. So if anything, I would probably just increase his HP just a little bit or something like that. But yeah, I'm really scared to touch Mr. P. I just wouldn't buff him if I was me. So going on to Sprout now. So Sprout, in terms of ladder, hasn't really got a high win rate, because he's only good against certain mechanics and just really strong in the right hands. So Sprout, I don't think you need to nerf him too much. If anything, probably nerf his damage just a tiny bit, probably to like 1300 and like 10. I don't know if we do it in like certain multiples, but you get what I mean. Just nerf a little bit. Still a little bit too strong for me in the right hands in competitive, but other than that, in terms of ladder, he's completely balanced. I'll probably be surprised if he actually nerf him in some way. Both star powers have their viabilities, both gadgets have their viabilities, so I don't think anything needs to be touched there. Probably just a tad less damage. So next up, we have Byron. Byron is secretly becoming a monster in the meta. We see him so much in competitive right now. People are finally starting to like him a little bit more. So Byron, again, probably just a release of a second gadget would be nice to see what else we can bring to the table with Byron. And both star powers are actually starting to get used now. Malaise is actually being used quite a fair bit in competitive, because a lot of people are using Byron as well, and it's good to counter the enemy Byron. So yeah, I just don't think anything needs to be changed with him, to be honest, because he's not been meta for a little while. People are just starting to learn to use him again, so he's just fairly balanced. And last and foremost, we have Squeak, one of the worst brawlers inside of a game. So bad. So for me, a lot needs to be changed with Squeak. So obviously, I feel like he just takes too long for his normal attack to explode. Maybe decrease that a little bit. His super is just absolutely terrible. Definitely in need of some form of mechanic change with that one. It just takes too long to explode. It feels like it never hits the enemy whatsoever. And yeah, the reload speed on Squeak's super low as well. So I think like multiple changes need to happen with Squeak. But you got to be careful, because I feel like Squeak can be easily one of the most toxic brawlers in the game, because of just his mechanics can just be really good at zoning. So yeah, that's going to be Mythic. Let's move on to Legendary. Okay guys, so starting off with the Legendary brawlers, number one, we have Spike. So Spike, at the moment, in a really good place in the meta. The only thing I don't like about Spike is his curveball. It's just one of the most annoying things inside of a game. So toxic. Some way, I would honestly just completely take that out of the game. I've always said this for so long. I just hate the star power. It probably won't happen, but it's one of the top on my wish list in terms of Brawl Stars. But yeah, that gadget is a little bit too strong. There's just a clear disbalance in what gadget's better. So for me, I would nerf this gadget just a little bit and try and give some love to the other one. So next up, we have Crow. I think the obvious change here is just the slowing needs to be decreased. 5 seconds is just way too much on this gadget. It's by far better than this other one, so probably like 4.5 seconds, 4 seconds might make Crow a little bit less viable in the meta, and it would feel a little bit nice on the longer range maps. That slow is just way too much. Next up, we have Leon. So Leon, the one change I do recommend, it's nice to see him in the 3v3 meta, but I feel like his mechanic, I think Arc actually recommended this change when it first got released into the game, which is a really nice change. So I think with this gadget, I think there should just be like a health decay, just like the bow totem, which would be an amazing change, because I just feel like sometimes that gadget can just stay along for too long. alive for too long, and just the invisibility is just such a strong mechanic. Super broken. So just a small change on Leon. Sandy gadget, that gadget is just way too strong. Everything else, Sandy was a balanced brawler before this gadget came out, and now he's one of the best easily. And we don't really like gadget styles, so not remove his gadget, nerf his gadget so it only stuns for like 1 second, 0.5 seconds, and then Sandy should be fairly balanced. Next up we have Amber. Amber, fairly balanced in the meta. I feel like in the long term they need to try and find a way to nerf auto aim on her. I don't know how they're going to do this, but seriously, as soon as Amber locks onto someone, they're pretty much dead, right? So I feel like the auto aim mechanic needs to be nerfed somehow in the future. I think that's the only change I would make to Amber, and then we could see some improvements down the line. So that's legendary. Let's move into Chromatic. All right, guys, so lastly, with the Chromatic brawlers, we're going to be starting off with Gale. Gale is still absolutely trash in the meta. I think he has been for like a year now, so Gale in need of some love. His new gadget just really isn't good except for game modes like Volleyball, which isn't a competitive game mode, so there's no really point for this gadget. So maybe make the gadget a larger radius or something like that. I don't really want to make that gadget too strong. He needs to be given some love in his base attack. So I think that was a nice change to the slow. Maybe even like 0.6 seconds could be good enough to make him better. But give him some love. Give him a faster reload speed. Give him some extra HP. Give him some damage. We need to give Gale something, right? Because he's been so trash in the meta for such a long time. So next up, we have Surge. So I asked for this change. I think a lot of people have for a long while now with this gadget, because this gadget is just way too strong. So I think the good change to make on this one would be to make it so whenever you TP, you have to use one piece of ammo. I think that could be a really nice change, and then it could give him some love when the second gadget comes out. So it's not going to be like a clear disparity in which gadget to use, because I feel like without this gadget, Surge is just completely useless. So yeah, some balancing with that gadget. Everything else about Surge I think is okay. It's a fairly balanced brawler right now. Next up we have Colette. So Colette, really solid in the meta. I think she's been near enough like top 20, top 15 brawler ever since the release. So maybe even a small nerf to Colette. I think it's one of the main reasons why tanks just will never really be good, because of this brawler, right? Colette just two-shots them and supers them and just kills every single one with ease. So probably, I don't really know how to change Colette, to be honest. It's one of the brawlers I kind of struggle on, because she's based a lot on percentages, right? There's a lot of weird maths that goes behind this brawler. If anything, I'll probably just nerf the shield just a tiny bit, because it's a bit too strong on game modes like Heist. So 4 brawlers left. Moving on to Lou. Lou again, I feel like the one mechanic that needs to change about Lou is the siege robot. I don't like it getting stuck on the river, especially with that super. So we need to change that mechanic and then go on to buffing his main mechanics. So the one thing I really despise about Lou is his shots are just really hard to hit. One of the highest skill cap brawlers low-key inside of the game, because of how hard his normal shots to hit, especially against really good players. It's just really easy to juke. So probably make it so his shots are easier to hit in the long run, and then probably nerf his damage or something like that. They need to just balance it that way. His normal shots are just too trash. Next up we have Ruffs. So Ruffs' new gadget is absolutely awful, and his sandbags are just too strong. So there needs to be some change in form of the gadgets, because both of them are really disbalanced. Both star powers are really balanced as well. So I think the only change really is just the gadgets, make them more balanced, and Ruffs is just going to be good overall. Next up we have Bells. So Belle's positive feedback is just too strong. I think that's in need of a nerf. I think she just does too much damage. She has a fast reload speed, just a fast unload speed as well. Something needs to be changed here. I think the slow as well probably should change to like 2 seconds or something. I think it's a little bit too toxic, but definitely a lot of ways to nerf Belle. And then finally, moving on to Buzz. Buzz, I think is pretty strong in this meta. I don't know how I'd really change him though, because it's definitely a split in opinion on how good he is. Maybe just nerf his HP a little bit, just so it's easier to take him down. But I feel like he's slowly becoming really meta in competitive, especially in NA. NA rate him as one of the best brawlers inside of the game. Is kind of okay in the EU meta, so that's why I'll probably just say just his HP, just so it's a bit easy to take down. But that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Hope you enjoy. Let me know of the balance changes that you want to see it the most inside of a game right now. But that's going to be it. Hope you all enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.